Instead of complaining about the problem, how do we fix the problem?
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is, who might be your adversary on one issue today might be your ally in 3 months. And so, certainly over time, I've learned that, you're better off not burning bridges as we go.
This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals.
Mostly. So here we are. I'm going to ask you right out of the gate, do you think that aliens exist?
That's about business.
We started off very casually, man.
Yeah.
Then we kind of get into it in the business of all the things of Spring Hill.
All right.
Because that's you're kind of the CEO of Spring Hill these days.
Well, that's what they tell me, yeah.
How does that feel?
Yeah, it's surreal in many ways. I mean, been involved with the city for quite a while, been on the board for quite a while now. So, in a lot of ways, it feels like I just slid over a couple of seats and
Dude,
kept the trains running.
I've been on an HOA board. I feel your pain. You deal with a lot of, dare I say, idiots.
I think an HOA board is probably a harder job than being on being an elected official.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Well, I mean, you got no way to enforce things other than sending letters and fining somebody $25 at a time, right? I mean, We've got a few other tools.
I guess that's true. So getting back to our original question, I mean, aliens. What do you? What's your take on it?
I don't know. That's something I probably spend 0% of my time thinking about.
It's like this is at the point where he questions himself. Why did I come here?
Yeah.
So not too long ago, we had an election. You said you were on the board. You were an alderman before.
I was.
Right?
I've been an alderman since 2015. Good people, Spring Hill reelected me in 2019 and then 2023.
I got to say, you're one of the most communicative politicians. Is that? Can you honestly call yourself? Is it politics?
I don't like being called a politician. I don't know that anybody likes being called a politician. I mean, these are part-time jobs. We got real jobs to actually pay the bills. And
what do you do?
I work for a leading oncology research group.
Okay.
There's a group here in the larger Nashville area that facilitates oncology drug trials, pharmaceutical trials. And, I'm in a strategy role for them, and we're just trying to get cutting-edge cancer therapies to people out in their community.
Very cool. So with being mayor now, has that become, forgive me for my ignorance, because it's one of those things that I think one of the biggest problems that any municipality has is an ill-informed electorate. And I'm definitely,
and that's part of the argument,
that.
right? And that's part of the argument for leaving our municipal elections in April, right? Yeah. Right now we're in April, only thing on the ballot. So voter turnout is low, much lower than I'd like it to be or anybody would like it to be, but it's a very informed electorate. They're only going out to vote for one thing. Yeah. I feel like that's a positive.
Right.
We only had about 9.5% of eligible voters
in this last election.
In this last election, I mean, I think we would all like it to be.
I want to say that's
70.
up though, isn't it? It was like 3 or 4% at one point.
Yeah, I mean, it's been all over the place, right? So, as far as a number of voters turning out, we were at 3,495, somewhere right in there, right around 3,500, and that's the most number of participants. The percentages move around because we're a growing community. Right.
So you've had other opportunities to run for mayor in the past since 2015.
Yeah, and I passed on them. Yeah. When I came on board in 2015, we had a mayor that I thought was doing a good job. And, generally I feel if somebody's doing a good job, you should let them keep doing a good job.
Who was the mayor then?
It was Rick Graham.
We had him on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did a good job. Had a lot of people try to encourage me to run for mayor in 2021. I didn't feel like it was right for me at the time due to a lot of reasons that, have got nothing to do with government. And, like I said, we all have got jobs and lives outside of government as well.
Totally.
But 2025, a lot of pressure on me again from community leaders and business leaders, not just in the city, but regionally. Yeah. A lot of encouragement to get in again. And it worked right from a personal standpoint and timing perspective, and felt called to do it. We got in, we won the race.
Here's the thing is that, going into it, and I'm sure a lot of other citizens saw the rhetoric that was out there. It was a little bit of a polarizing race for a bit.
A little bit. I mean, I felt like one of the other candidates in the race tried to make it a little bit polarizing. My focus throughout the campaign was talking about, my vision for the city and how I felt the city could work with others to move key critical projects forward.
Yeah.
So we didn't pay a lot of attention to the noise some of the other people were putting out.
I mean, there was, one person kept on, there was like a Facebook page devoted to like anybody but Fitterer, that kind of thing.
Yeah. People need hobbies, I guess.
Yeah. And it's like, you get into that. You've been doing this for 10 years, being someone in the public eye. So I guess you're kind of acclimated to it. But
as acclimated as you could be. I mean,
right.
I'm glad people are passionate about their positions.
Yeah.
Whether I agree with their positions or not. I mean, I certainly don't agree with the anybody but me position.
Right.
So for me, I kind of take it all with a grain of salt. Don't put a lot of time into it. It's probably harder on families and people, your family members and people around you than it is yourself.
Yeah. So top three, what are the top three issues we're facing as a city?
Those are easy. Utility capacities are number one.
Mm-hmm.
They really are. We've got to have long-term solutions for our sewer, for our water supply. We've got to continue to invest in our public safety. This morning is when we did the ground opening of our brand new police station.
That's right.
Yeah. I actually came from that. That's where I'm coming from. And then we've got to continue to invest in our roadway infrastructure as well. If you look at June Lake right up the street here, Legacy Point, those are projects that are really going to come to their full potential and full fruition, if we continue to invest in those three things. And that's going to create a lot of opportunities for everybody within Spring Hill and the greater region as well. And the other thing about all three of those is they're only going to be done in partnership with other people, be it private parties or, other governmental agencies at the regional or state level. We have to be able to get along and cooperate with people in the region if we're going to push things forward.
And that's the thing is that, traffic has been a big sore point for people around Spring Hill.
And traffic's a regional issue. It's not a Spring Hill issue.
It really is.
Traffic on 65 is not a Spring Hill issue.
It's they open up June Lake and it's like they got the hourglass thing from Saturn Parkway up to June Lake. Why? Why just make it 3 freaking lanes?
And that's something that we have to, I talked about partnering with other people, that's a partnership with the county. That's a partnership with
the state, I guess,
our state representatives and senators. That's a partnership with TDOT. That's a partnership with the town of Thompson Station.
A lot of bureaucracy.
Yeah, but it's also discussions in other municipalities and how they choose to allow or not allow, residential development to occur.
Yeah.
I mean, look, people get on 65 and drive north because that's where jobs are.
Yeah.
And they can't live up there due to, whatever the affordability issues are. And a lot of that's driven by, land use decisions from other municipalities. And it's also driven by the fact that we still have to create more economic opportunities and employment opportunities here in Spring Hill.
Are you an OG to Spring Hill? Are you a native?
No, I'm a Arizona native. Got here about 12 years ago. Yeah.
12 years ago, you moved here. From where in Arizona?
I did not move from Arizona. So I went to school in Arizona, decided I wanted to go to graduate school. Thought I'd go try a different part of the country and move back to Arizona in 2 years. So I landed at the University of Illinois.
Right.
Planned to be in Illinois for 2 years, move right back to Arizona. Instead of career opportunity came up in the Chicago area, met a Chicago girl and, she decided she wanted to move down here and asked me if I was coming along. And
sure,
Tennessee sounded a lot more like Arizona than Chicago did. So
a little bit more humid.
Showed up sight unseen.
Yeah. We just got back from Las Vegas. So that's where we came from. My wife
and I. It's like sticking your head in an oven. Yeah.
It is. But, I enjoy the dryness, because that's all of a sudden, allergies cleared up and everything while we were out there for a trade show recently. But we lived there from 01 to 05. And I have now a matured appreciation for their foresight in infrastructure planning,
Yeah.
It's a great city in general because it's laid out like a grid. Not everybody has that luxury. We certainly don't. Our roads they're like spaghetti. It's tough to really kind of, map that out on a grid. But when you got like loops going around the city, I mean, the 215, the beltway that went around the west side of Vegas when we moved there was a well thought out,
Yeah, and a lot of that's driven by
20 years in advance.
A lot of that's driven by, how states are willing to fiscally plan for things as well. I mean, the state government, in Tennessee, likes to highlight they're one of only a handful of states that has no road debt.
Yeah.
Building a road out like the loop you're talking about in Vegas, before there's a need for it, you have to do debt in advance and hope it comes through. And, the fiscal approach that Tennessee takes as a state just doesn't allow for that. It's probably part of why we have one of the lower tax burdens nationwide as a state in Tennessee.
Because Nevada and Tennessee are both not state income tax states.
Well, not just the lack of the state income tax, but our sales tax, our local level property taxes, be it the city and county. If you look at the total tax burden on anybody in Tennessee, it's one of the lower ones in the country.
Right.
The trade off for that is governments have less revenues to do things with.
One of the things we did while we were out there, we somehow always end up visiting the Hoover Dam. And if you ever do research on that project, it took them 4 years to build that thing.
Yeah.
And here we are, I'm staring at a construction project that's going on probably 4 years at this point. The Buckner widening.
Well,
utterly amazing.
It's always harder to build roads if it's an existing road, right? To improve an existing road's harder because you got to move utilities. You got to have a traffic mitigation plan. I mean, people want to continue to drive.
You have OSHA to contend with.
But yeah, the alternative is just shut down the road, do construction, and open it back up when you're done, right? That's not really an option. So you've got to shift traffic. You got to build temporary lanes. That all adds time and cost to it. You look at June Lake Boulevard going the other way. Part of why they were able to build that as quick as they did is there's nothing out there. It's just greenfield construction. You don't have to worry about moving utilities. You don't have to wait for AT&T to come to move a pole. You can just blow and go.
When's the next step? Like, the next major development in June Lake, when is that slated to start? Like stores and things of that nature?
Yeah, well, that's really June Lake's and that developer's news to announce. I know they talk
high B and all that stuff. High B or high V?
High V.
High V.
Yeah, I think high V at this point. It's probably not a secret that they're not coming. They had a site plan that was approved in May of 2022. Those are good for 3 years. Mm-hmm. So they either need to break ground by the end of the month, which they're not going to do, or their site plan expires. Now they still own the dirt over there. That doesn't mean they're not going to come back with a site plan, in June or 6 months from now. But I don't think there's any timeline on High V right now.
Right. So with the plans that you have laid out before you, what's your biggest approach and what's going to be the way you go about accomplishing what's your biggest plan, so to speak?
Well, the biggest plans are the things we've talked about. I mean, the additional utility capacity is very, very, very high at the top of the list.
Are people generally aware of that? Because I would say that they will know it's traffic,
Well, I don't know. I mean, I know people are aware when we remind them all about what our water conservation policy is at the beginning of every summer. That's always an unpopular conversation to have, even though it's been a policy since 2009. I mean, it's not a new policy. And the state makes it clear too, if you expect to utilize additional natural resources from the Duck River, which is what we do, they expect you to be good stewards of what you already have. It is a conservative approach to things. And so, I think citizens probably are aware of the challenges around the water supply, and they're certainly aware of the challenges around the Duck River. But the sewer side of things is probably less well known and less understood. I mean, most people want to flush the toilet and stop thinking about sewage after that. But
I just want it to go away.
Yeah, I would hit this little lever and my problem goes somewhere else.
That's right.
But it's got to go somewhere. It's got to be dealt with. It's got to be cleaned. It's got to be reclaimed somewhere. And it takes volume to do that. So that's our biggest challenge that we're working through. Our water reclamation project right now is in a pilot phase. So we'll work through that pilot activity and then, look to get into the meat of the project.
Yeah. It doesn't help. You got so many developers moving to town, which I know is in your campaign has been, I don't know if it's been a thorn in your side or whatever. You've been accused of, working or being a friend of developers. But I mean, it's kind of one of those things. It's like technology. Technology is a freight train that's coming down the track, whether you like it or not. It doesn't matter who's standing on it.
Yeah. And
you know what I mean?
I don't know what it really means. If I'm called a friend of developers, or I really don't get what that means. I mean, like you said, they are stakeholders in the process, whether we like it or not. They They own the land, whether we like it or not. They have land use rights in our state, whether we like it or not. So, to dig your heels in, stick your head in the sand and act like you can control the situation is just naive to me.
Right.
I would rather go, work with those people, get them towards projects that benefit the city and benefit the citizens who are already here, and try to work alongside them versus pushing a rope uphill.
Yeah.
Like I said a minute ago, it just came from the police headquarters grand opening. The reason that project got kind of pushed ahead was because the developer donated 5 acres to the city, right?
Yeah.
It was, probably $2 million worth of land just given to the city.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, we were able to advance a public safety project. You're talking about Buckner Lane being under construction here. It's really a 3-phase project, right? You got a northern third, a central third that's under construction. I actually signed the construction contract for the southern third last week, but the northern third was built by private development. City spent $0 on that,
right?
And so if development is going to come regardless of what we do, which it is, right? As long as Middle Tennessee remains a good place to live, which it is and will be, development's going to come. So are we going to come alongside them and find ways that win-win for everybody? Or are we going to act like we can stop it? Right. We can't. And let's get win-wins out of this.
Does your garage door sound like this? If it does, it's screaming for help. Call Incredible Doors, 931-348-DOOR. We're making garage doors in Murray and Williamson counties work better and sound better. We just make them incredible again. Go to IncredibleDoors.com or call 931-348-DOOR. Follow us on Facebook for specials on maintenance visits, keypads, and other items. 931-348-DOOR. IncredibleDoors.com. And it's like, a lot of people are upset about condos, townhomes, things of that nature, other subdivisions being built with, hundreds of houses. But at the same time, there's complaints about house prices being so high. And it's simply, supply and demand.
Easiest way for us to lower entry-level housing prices is to allow there to be more housing supply.
And more inventory.
Right. Easiest way to fix traffic on 65 is to let the people who are commuting north live up north, right?
Yeah.
Brentwood city elections today, we'll see where they're at from a voter turnout perspective, but they're very prideful in their 1 home per acre policy. Works for them. It works for them as a community, but how many people sit on 65 every day driving north to get to work in Maryland Farms because they can't afford to live in Brentwood because they got a 1 acre per unit policy that makes affordable and attainable housing not possible.
I'll tell you one thing, 20 years ago, Brentwood was not affordable.
and
That's when we moved there.
And it's only gotten worse, right? Yeah. So, going back to the traffic challenges regionally, the Brentwood land use decisions create traffic on 65. Now, nobody wants to hear that, right? But, people in different phases of life have different needs from a housing product standpoint. My in-laws, they don't want a yard to take care of. They want to be in a townhome or an apartment. They're elderly. They don't need to do all that outside. Yeah. You look at a kid coming out of college, they can't buy a 1 acre, property in Brentwood. They need an apartment. They need a condo. They need a townhome. They need something. And so, if we're going to be a city with a diverse economy that works for everybody, we've got to have housing options that work for everybody.
Is a city center one of your priorities?
No, it's not. I mean, look, it's something that I would like to.
Where would you put it? Right?
It's something that I would like to have happen, but it's not something that government's going to get in the driver's seat on, right? City centers traditionally are around courthouses and squares and things that naturally happen over time. They're not artificially created. I've looked at several projects with developers lately where they're looking at, pedestrian scale projects and pedestrian scale plazas and malls, maybe the bad term to use, but pedestrian area malls that create some of that, kind of downtown character. But that's a hard thing to pull off as well. And so it's something that's going to kind of have to mature on its own. I don't think government can get in front of that and create something. It's going to come off fake.
Is it fair to say that Spring Hill kind of got caught up in a frenzy? I mean, I think Middle Tennessee in general has, but Spring Hill, when we moved here, was considered a, quote, bedroom community. And you had Columbia to our south, the infrastructure there was already, it was well thought out, but I don't think they had the population.
Yeah,
now they're starting to get to capacity.
Columbia's been around since the 1800s and grew at a steady pace basically for 200 years. And they've had multiple generations to put infrastructure projects in as the population slowly ramps up over time.
Yeah.
Spring Hill in 2006, the board at the time eliminated the property taxes and, hey, we're going to do everything through growth, and intentionally made zoning decisions that encouraged high density development. So while Columbia's got this nice steady, slope occurring over hundreds of years, Spring Hill's got a spike due to land use decisions. So
in the last 20 years, pretty much.
Yeah, it's not that our needs are any different than Columbia's. They had them over 200 years. We had them in 20.
Right. So we're paying a lot of catch up.
A lot of catch up. Yeah.
Columbia has they're afforded the town square though, which obviously to your point
they were a county seat, right? That's not anything that the Columbia City Council sat down and thoughtfully planned out. They happened to by chance and by luck ended up being a county seat, put a courthouse in it, developed naturally around it.
Nice. Getting into the other, like what I know that mayors also, there's like mayor conventions that happen, right?
Yeah, there are.
Have you been to any yet, or you plan on?
I mean, I've had the job for 2 weeks, right? So I mean, I've gotten FedEx packages and emails from the different organizations and whatever, pitching themselves. And honestly, I haven't even looked at them yet.
Tell me about, in the last 2 weeks, I know it's only been a short time. Have you had a morning where you got up and said, what the heck was I thinking?
No.
Really?
Absolutely not.
You could be honest.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to be honest, there's times during the campaign you wake up and think that, like, man, what am I going to deal with on social media today? But having the job itself, absolutely not.
Like I said, but the best thing in any situation, especially terse, with marriages, with friends, business partners, is open communication. And I say, you've always been very good, like we said at the top of the show.
People can deal with good news. People can deal with bad news. People can't deal with no news.
Right.
I mean, if you treat them like mushrooms and leave them in the dark, they're not going to react well to that. So, I've always taken the approach that, here are the facts, make of it what you will, know, but, I also think of myself and I think of the other elected officials as, reasonable people with some decent common sense. And, if the average person has the same information I have when I'm making a decision, I think most of the time they're going to come to the same conclusion. Right. Assuming we have similar values and priorities. Right. And so, sharing the information that I have that is available to me as I reach a decision, leads other people to be more informed about their community. And they also leads them to reach the same conclusion. Yeah. Right. And that's the real value in the transparency and, pushing the information out.
Yeah. I was getting back to like just talking about serving on a board, even though I was on an HOA, I would make a horrible politician. I'm too, like, you're very diplomatic. You're very, okay, I know how to.
I've learned.
Yeah.
I've learned, right?
I shoot from the hip way too much.
Yeah. Man. So
I used to sit there in front on board meetings and they'd be like, what about this and this and this? I'm like, well, hey, there's 2 extra chairs here that we need for volunteers. So why don't you put your name in that? Yeah. I'd say it right from the stage, instead of complaining about the problem, how do we fix the problem?
Yeah. I mean, the challenge is, who might be your adversary on one issue today might be your ally in 3 months. And so, certainly over time, I've learned that, you're better off not burning bridges as you go.
Yeah. I guess I'm never going to run for public office, but that's okay by me.
You never know.
No, I'm pretty sure. What is your, family? How do they take all that?
Yeah, well, I got young children. I got a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, and 2-year-old. I mean, they just think it's cool. I mean, my 5-year-old's got the same, thought process of how development works as a lot of people. I'll get home from a meeting, whatever, and she'll be like, "Well, what'd you decide to build?" And I'll tell her about whatever, happened in the meeting, and she'll look at me and go, "You should have built an ice cream shop."
Ice cream shops are always a good answer.
And so that's her thought process around it. I was like, well, Dad, just tell the workers what to do.
Well, what's the feedback you've been getting from the overall business community? You work closely with the Chamber of Commerce and such.
Yeah, the overall feedback has been one that people are very excited to have the mayor's office be open to collaborating and working together again. Kind of a lot of pent up demand for collaboration on the different things. And a lot of people very excited that there's an environment now where they can come forward with something and be met with an open hand.
Right. Well, there's certainly a youth aspect to it because in the past, I think the last 2 terms, we had mayors that were a little bit up there in age.
I think they were in their 60s.
Yeah. Not that that's a bad thing. Unless,
60's the new 40, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Not that I'm anywhere near 60, but
hey.
Is that kind of played into it as well? What specific feedback?
I don't know. I mean, going back to my day job a little bit, right? Very, very growth oriented healthcare organizations is really where I've spent my career. Focused on solving difficult problems, right? Oncology research is not easy, right? Getting oncology research out of an academic medical center and into a community-based oncology's office is not easy. Doing that at scale in 250 clinics across the country with a goal of doubling is not easy, right? And so, coming from a standpoint where you're trying to problem solve and trying to find solutions and paths forward where there's no clear path forward, that's the real advantage.
Mm-hmm. What's any innovative ways you're thinking about to evolve the communication to the city, aside from social media? Maybe there's other venues or avenues.
Yeah, we've
looked, feedback.
Yeah, we've looked several years of a couple different methods. I'm really excited about the Citizens Academy we've been having for a couple years now. We just started our 3rd class. It's
that's news to me. What is that?
Yeah, so we take a group of about 24 citizens who raise their hand and say, I want to learn more about the city. Mm-hmm. Put them through a once a week class. I think it's on Thursday evenings. And, for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it is, they learn about how the city operates, right? There's a day they learn about planning and development. There's a day they learn about police and fire. There's a day they learn about public works and just how the city operates, right? Mm-hmm. And it's been a very enlightening process to those that have gone through it. And anytime we have more engaged citizens and more informed citizens, we're going to be better off. And so we're really kind of creating an opportunity for people to kind of see the inner workings of the city without being more committed than, an 8 week, I think it's 8 or 10 week class. Right. And so people have really, really enjoyed that. The classes fill up quick. We got a waiting list, but it's something that we're going to continue to do.
Is it something that can be streamed?
No, this is hands-on experiences at the city department. I mean, when you're, when you do the fire class, you fire up a fire hose, right?
So you're actually, actually in, I gotcha.
Yeah. Gotcha. When we do the utility class, you're out at the water plant, you're out at the sewer plant. So it's a very hands-on, very interactive learning opportunity.
Can people sign up for a series of classes, or is it kind of?
It's a course. No. Yeah. So, the communications office will open up, say, hey, we're taking applicants, and, spots fill up fast.
What if you had something like, even just to engage with citizens? Because you do such a good job with the communication on Facebook, and a lot of it's written. It's tough to interpret tone in the written word.
It is, yeah.
Is there a podcast or something like that, or even a stream once a month, just to kind of engage with the city? Hey, here's what we're doing. Here's what we've done the last month. Here's what's coming up. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I've got my newsletter. Again, that's written form, but 7,300 people get it currently. I've played around with it. Done all video editions, right? And people hated it, so I switched back.
How do they hate it? What was the feedback like?
A lot of the feedback was, and maybe people shouldn't tell me this, but hey, I scroll your newsletter and read it while I'm sitting in traffic or driving or something. I can't do that on a video. I'm like, well, you probably shouldn't be checking your email while you're driving.
Reading it, yeah.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, even just listening to it, if you were to read it or something like that,
Yeah, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe we'll play around with that.
You got a stream. You got people that are chiming in. You could read comments and stuff like a radio show.
Yeah.
Maybe once a week or something.
Yeah, like a mostly Middle Tennessee business podcast.
It's funny. I mean, there's a company I know that produces podcasts that would be more than happy to have this conversation with you. I'm just saying.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about it.
But I think a lot of that is necessary these days because people, the problem is getting people more involved. Everybody likes the federal level elections and things of that nature, when you have all the media hype. And it's funny because these are the elections that matter the least to you. The ones that matter the most are the ones on the ground level.
100% agree.
Right.
100% agree.
But you get the least amount of engagement. So what's the solution?
It's frustrating. It's frustrating. I mean,
you seem to be like a mayor that wants to, look, tell me, I've took the job. Let me have it, or what do we need to do? How do we move this forward? I get you don't like the developers, but guys, they're
here.
They're coming.
Here whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah. So, we'll just keep chipping away at it. I mean, we'll stay committed to the social media engagement. We'll stay committed to the newsletter. We've shifted around our agendas a little bit to double the amount of opportunity that citizens have for citizen comment during our agendas. Right. We've shifted around some of the committees and commissions that I get to appoint people to create some new opportunities for people to get engaged. So we'll keep chipping away at it a bit at a time. Maybe it's like
there's every single town, it seems, especially here in Spring Hill, you have like people who chime in on whatever topic it may be. Mm-hmm. They become like local celebrities, like little influencers, little micro influencers in the community. Maybe it's a round table with those guys.
Maybe. Maybe. How many spots you got here at the table?
I do. I got, I can always add.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that, you build it in the city hall. I mean, city hall still, is there any news for a new building on that end?
No, we just released a RFQ to get proposals to construct a new library on 3 acres adjacent to City Hall. Mm-hmm. There's some vision and idea around combining the two buildings. We're out of space in City Hall. We've been out of space in City Hall for a while.
But you're clearing some of it up because the police department
We are clearing some of it up, and we'll still be out of space.
Right.
But putting money into City Hall when there's other community needs is not popular. People say it's $1 you could have spent on a road, and that's probably right. So there may be some opportunities with what comes back in the library design to get some shared community space between the two buildings.
Is it in the existing space where the library is now?
The new design?
Yeah.
No, it'll be adjacent to City Hall.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 3 acres adjacent to City Hall that the city's owned for decades.
What about the spot where the library is currently? Is that owned by
there's no plan for that right now.
Is it rented or is it owned by the city?
No, it's owned by the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like a library. Like, what does a library in this day and age look like?
Well, a library in this day and age isn't just books on a shelf, right? It's like a lot of the community programming. It's the community center. It's the community meeting spaces. It's the programming they have within the library. A lot of different demographics put a lot of value into that, and that's what they get out of it, not just taking a book home.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, I know we're kind of pressed for time here. You have a hard stop coming up in a few minutes. What is it you're needing? What is it that, you're looking for in the next 6 months to a year?
Yeah, other than a magic wand that fixes all of our infrastructure challenges?
Other than that.
Other than that, yeah.
Best as we can come up with that.
People staying engaged like we've talked about. I mean, I'll admit it, there's tons of times people ask a question on social media that makes me go, I didn't think about that. And then you go chase it down and it works and turns into a solution. So, us as elected officials we go about the city, interact with the city, how we do based upon our job and, our family and our circles of friends, and everybody else's interaction with the city is different from ours. And sharing those experiences and sharing what those challenges and pain points are, gives me an insight into the city that I don't have because, how you go about interacting with the city, commuting around and where you shop and where you choose to eat and spend your time and money is different than me.
Yeah.
And so getting those different perspectives in, so we can find creative solutions together is really what we need as a community.
I'd imagine you get a lot of interesting questions. A lot of the similar, you probably get 90% of the same stuff over and over again. But every now and then you get to have a question.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could put a FAQ sheet together
Yeah.
and just point at it for a lot of the questions that come in.
Right.
But there are plenty of times that come in that says, well, what about this? And it's like, well, I've never thought about it or never thought about it in that way. And we end up finding something that works.
Let's say, hypothetically, on a podcast platform that the city may or may not want to pursue with us. But anyway, having a section of the podcast or a segment of the podcast of, hey, this is the most interesting question of the week or of the month, and as a prize. So there you got the engagement.
Yeah.
Okay, it's maybe, I don't know, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and then we could read mean tweets after that or something.
We could totally do that. I think the more candorous somebody can be in a politician's situation and ecosystem, the better.
Yeah, well, look, we got to take the job seriously. That doesn't mean we necessarily have to take ourselves seriously.
Right.
And, at the end of the day, we are all neighbors here, living here and choosing to be here.
Yeah. We all want the best.
We all want the best.
It looks like a million different things.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you very much for coming out here. It was great to have a first meeting, and feel free to reach out.
Sometime.
We can absolutely do it again. You let me know, and we'll have you on. Maybe we'll do a little bit longer next time.
Sounds good.
All right, buddy.
All right. Thank
Again,
you.
guys, Mayor Matt Fitterer, the new Spring Hill mayor. I got to thank him. I'll put all of your contact information and everything in the description as normal. Check us out at mmtbp.com if you want to be on the podcast. There's a link there. And give us a 5-star rating. If you can't give us a 5-star rating, go ahead and leave a rating. But let us know why it couldn't be 5-star and what we can work on. And go from there. Matt Fitterer, Mayor Matt Fitterer. Thank you so much, sir.